Okay. Welcome everyone to Sunday Morning Grace. I am Reverend Elvia, and I am just so tickled to be sharing space with two more of our seminary students, Kimberley, Kling, and Vanessa, Everett, who will soon, I'm getting chills around this, next Friday, oh my God, I'm even tearing up, be ordained as ministers of the Sacred Rose. So once I recover from unexpected emotional surge, because I'm just so proud of you guys. You know, this journey has been an amazing journey. And, you know, I'm going to do the opening blessing and then we're going to unleash a conversation on the topic of courage. But, you know, there are people who wonder what it means to be a minister of the Sacred Rose. And we've actually talked quite about it, a lot about it in class. And it really always goes back to, and always has gone back to, how we show up as ministers in the world, how we can minister to each other and to maybe even more importantly, to ourselves, to show up in that very, very sacred space and be true to ourselves, to own what we know is what our soul came here to do, and to really stand strong for that. So with that, and there's more, of course, that we could talk about, but I don't want to digress too much. So let's just, I'm feeling the need to put my feet flat on the floor, do whatever you need to move your body, and just settle into this present moment, this beautiful sacred space and time. Connecting with your higher self as if there is no need really to connect, because you already are one. And gently breathing into this truth. And we invite our angels, our benevolent guides, our ancestors of the light, to show us whatever it is that we need to see, to hear, to know, to feel on the topic of courage today. To embody courage. And to know what it is that you need to do to stand strong as who you are and why you're here. And with your next breath, bring your focus and your awareness back to this space and time, and we will begin. So I'm going to put my goggles back on so I can read our notes. We did talk about this a little ahead of time, and I'd love to start with just you guys sharing who you are and you know, anything you're guided to share, and then we'll dip into courage.
Kim, do you want to go first?
Okay, my name is Kim Kling. I live in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it's an honor to be here today. And so thank you to all who are joining now and joining later. And it's a special group that I've been a part of, and I'm very, very thankful and very grateful for each and every one. Thank you.
I should have brought Kleenex.
I know. I know, especially when Kim speaks. I can't help but get choked up because of her words of wisdom every time. Just love you so much, and you too, Elvia. I'm Vanessa Everett, and I live in Marion, Massachusetts, and I've been studying with Elvia for a long time now. And it actually took some courage for me to join this class, and I'm so glad I did, because it completely changed my life in so many different ways. I've made wonderful friends and have learned so much about myself and others. And it's just truly such an honor and a privilege to be here participating today. So thank you for having me.
Love having you part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish there was a little blip in time for when you first started out your journey with the angels and where you are now. Like, if there was a way to, like, I don't know.
Before and after.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy journey.
Staying in the present.
Hmm.
So tell me, Vanessa, do you want to share what does courage mean to you? And I love that you shared that it took courage to even do this journey.
Yeah. Well, courage is definitely a loaded word. I, have been given this topic a lot of thought, and the first thing that came to mind was, for some people, it takes a lot of courage to get up in the morning, and for others, whatever their journey is at that time, it 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 means to trust, it means to believe, it means to have faith, it means to dig deep. And it took courage for me to join this class because, I'm a business owner, I'm homeschooling my daughter, my husband has a very demanding job. And the first thing I did was to kind of, shut it down. Like, I don't have time for that. I don't, but after digging deep, I had to have the courage to listen to my intuition, to trust that it was going to work out, that I was meant to be divinely there. And I'm so glad I listened, because when you do, things work out beautifully. And it did for these classes. I mean, I had to miss a few, but I had to trust that I would get what I needed, and um, trust that everything was in divine alignment. And that takes courage.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, that's my little piece. I mean, I could talk about it for hours. It's such a juicy word.
Yeah, and it's wild, isn't it, that it takes courage to be our real selves,
Little wink there.
right? Like that it takes courage to be ourselves. That seems so counterintuitive, and it is counterintuitive. It's just not the society and the world that we've been swimming in for most of our lives. So
It
kudos to
takes,
you for following.
yeah, it takes courage to create the world that you want to live in. And I knew that I wanted to live in a world that brought me closer to my divine purpose.
Mm.
And I had to trust that, even with all of these things that are happening. Um, so, yeah.
Right, right. And life is such a good teacher to help us get there.
Hmm.
So Cam, what are your thoughts on courage?
Well, I don't know if I should start with the definition or just jump in. Um, Courage for me, I think, and I've observed this not just in me, also in others. Courage is a very powerful word that most people do not assign to themselves.
Mm.
They'll assign it to our men and women in the armed forces, to firefighters, to policemen. You assign that because it's a big word. It's very powerful, so they assign it to those who do big deeds. And I think, I know for me, I forget that I'm just as powerful. I have the courage, just as everyone else here has the courage. It took great courage to come here to this plane of existence at
Yes.
this time to do what we're all here to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, kudos, pat yourself on the back, be kind to yourself and gentle, and realize you're here because you're meant to be here. And it took great courage for you to come here. And that's something that I remind myself from time to time, that it did take courage to come here. I did step forward and say, yes, I will come here at this time and do what I need to do. So I think for a lot of people, we forget how courageous we truly are.
Yeah.
Very true.
It is so true.
And when we were talking a few days ago, I can't remember which one of you said it, but it's like you can't have courage without having fear.
Right.
And I thought that was such a beautiful point to make, because it's like we can't, you know, it did take courage for us all to incarnate and be here during this major time of transition. And we are all called to roll up our sleeves and do the work to dig deep within ourselves. And that takes courage. But there's a lot of fear that goes along with it, which is why it takes courage. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that, both of you, around the fear and the courage that we need to lean into.
I think I when you say that, I get this message. Courage is the oomph from fear. It's what transcends.
It's like the vitamin that we need to dissolve the fear, you know, and I'm trying to
You
teach
don't
that
have
to,
fear, you don't have courage. I mean, if you,
right.
they're kind of intertwined in that fear is what calls you to courage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fear is what calls you to stand up and be brave and courageous, whatever the circumstance.
And it takes courage to have accountability and responsibility for what's happening in our lives, and to address them, and to understand that there are lessons. And it takes courage to apply what we've learned. But it does get easier at times, you know. Excuse me?
Definitely, especially
Yeah.
since we know that connection with source, and really, you know, like in the opening blessing, when I was channeling connect to source, it's like we're already there. And
Mhm.
more that we understand that we're already in that space of connection, I think, to your point, it definitely gets easier.
And again, I something that I'm trying to instill in my daughter, and in fact, I'm going to try to use that word more often,
Mm.
because I think it's important for her to start to identify and embody that word
Mm.
too, because, you know, she's 13 and is going to be, you know, she's got quite the journey ahead of her. So, and she's one to roll up her sleeves too at times, to dig deep and to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Courage to be 13.
Yes. It takes courage to parent a 13-year-old. Oh, excuse me. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the fear, because you know what made me think while you guys were talking is that we really are called to welcome fear, aren't we? Because that's our catalyst to the courage, to digging deep into that courage. Because it feels to me like when we see ourselves as courage, when we courageous, as we really lean into that, we grow stronger. And so it's almost like we need the fear to be courageous, to grow stronger, to be more true to ourselves.
And it's in our face now more than ever.
Mm.
There's a lot of fear narrative around so many things.
Mhm.
And it takes courage to decipher,
Mhm.
you know, what's real and what's not, or what resonates within.
Mhm.
Um, I feel now more than ever, it's really in our face over the past year, you know, 18 months or whatever now. And to find courage that you never knew you had.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and to be discerning, and I think you actually said that word, to know
Mm-hmm.
like what, not only what resonates within, because I at least personally believe that we're we're meant to have all these different viewpoints and opinions and ways of looking at things, because it's like a classroom for all of us.
Exactly.
Um, but it's not easy, and I think we have to look at, okay, so what lesson am I going to learn? Do I really need to go into this particular topic or not? So it's discernment about what resonates and also about where we choose to put our energy.
Mm-hmm. And there was a meme that was brought to my attention, and I'll read it to you if that's okay. Um, there is a difference between giving up and knowing when you've had enough courage. So I feel like that kind of applies to a lot too, because, throughout this journey, so many people have different opinions and how they, are choosing to live their life. And now I feel like it takes courage to, embrace, failed relationships or failed, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, boundaries.
Boundaries, right. And that takes courage.
It takes a ton of courage. Yeah,
And you can still love and be compassionate
of course.
at the same time, there's no judgment. It's just.
And say no.
And to say no, right.
Mm-hmm. And I think especially light workers, we tend to, want to please everybody to keep the peace, which means compromising your own energy at times.
Right. And your truth. Right.
Yeah. So Kim, I know that you're having all kinds of thoughts over there. Your wisdom is pouring out of your being. Share.
Yeah, it was interesting to listen because what I was hearing, and I was trying to put it into a phrase of some kind where fear is the catalyst for courage, and it is also a choice that we have as an individual, whether to stay in fear or to allow our higher selves, our holier selves, whatever you want to call it, our most powerful selves, to step forward in courage to move forward. And I think there's an awful lot of momentum nowadays with that energy of choose courage.
Yes.
Choose to move forward.
Yeah. And I want to go back to, some of the simpler things. Vanessa, you had talked about sometimes it takes courage to get out of bed.
Yes.
Well, and Kim, you just had without going into any details that you don't want to go into, but you just had this phase of life where it took a lot of courage to ask for help. And I think so many people fall into that category because, we don't want to burden others, or we don't want to, I know, I remember as a little kid, literally hands on my hips, I can do it by myself, like to my parents or whoever, and, I think there's still a lot of that in the world, where I can do it by myself. And if I don't, then I'm not courageous, then I'm not brave, then I'm not strong. And really the opposite is true. Do you want to expand a little on that, Kim? In whatever way you're comfortable.
It has been an interesting year so far in that I saw different versions, different levels of courage, if you will, from myself. And that was, when I was ill, it took a lot of courage to ask for help from my neighbors, from my friends. I wasn't used to doing that. I was used to pretty much, if I didn't do it, it didn't get done. And to be as ill as I was, and to one of those step up and ask, and there was fear involved of being rejected, of then what, and every single time I asked for help, people stepped forward and said, sure, yeah, we're there, what do you need? I'm like, wow, that kind of works. that's cool, but it took all of that in order for me to be vulnerable and to ask for help. It took courage to do that. And so that's where I recognize in myself that I can pat myself on the back and say, yes, you were courageous. That's a good thing. Remember this, you know. So courage doesn't have to necessarily be a big, huge event
Right.
that, you've stepped into. It can be asking for help, mowing the yard, something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's silly. That's just silly. Who's going to want to help me? Yep, my neighbors, awesome people. We're like, yep, we'll do that. So it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, asking your angels for help. It doesn't have to be a big, huge ask. It can be asking for a parking space. It could be asking for, the light to change or something. It's along those lines. It is as simple as that. And we tend to make it much bigger and more difficult.
And that act of courage also helps other people.
Yeah, just thinking that.
Yeah.
People, it is like shining that little holy flashlight on somebody and planting the seed through that act of courage. Who knows what your words did for that person that day? People love to help, yeah. And so that's why courage is such a juicy word. There's so many layers to it. And I think you're spot on too with, it doesn't have to be, swimming into the ocean to save the person, like it's
Right.
it can be very small task, and that's what's very special.
Yeah, I mean, you can be an introvert who sort of garners the strength to smile at somebody
Exactly.
and store or reach out or whatever. So yeah.
Mhm.
And I think so many people, at least in my world, seem to be going through their own version of dark night of the soul.
Yes.
It just seems to be like that's the energy we're swimming in. And so I think recognizing the courage that it takes to get up in the morning, smile on your face or not, but to get up in the morning, to have the intention for the day to be as great as it can possibly be, which may not feel great or it may feel great, like just the little things of just continuing to show up and to say yes to the path, to the higher self, to growth, to all of it. And at a lot of times, that's not easy.
Right.
So, but Peter talks about in human design, he talks about for generators, the response chain, which I really love. It's like, I want him to talk more about it because it's really about, especially generators for us, we only have to respond to this moment right now, and the strength to show up, the courage to show up here now. And then whatever is next, that will be shown to you when you get there. And I think we tend to so project into the future that all these fears come from the future, where really it's about showing up with courage in this moment.
Mm-hmm. To stay present.
Yeah, very much so.
And that takes courage too, especially if someone is battling an addiction or is going through something really hard, to not want to drink it away or smoke it away, or, it takes courage to just try to be present as much as you can.
To really feel.
To feel.
Yeah.
And to heal.
To feel and to heal. Yes, yes, yes. So I'm just looking to make sure that we covered what we wanted to cover. And, I'm going to bring it back to what we were chatting about before I turned on Facebook Live and the recording and all that. And that was the Cowardly Lion with courage, because it's just so well known, courage. And Kim, you do it better than I
Yeah,
do.
you're spot on, Kim.
One more time.
Cute.
Courage.
I love it. And it's fun, and it feels maybe a little silly, but it's, Vanessa, you were talking about the whole point of the Wizard of Oz, and what that whole story, that heroine's journey really is about.
Right.
Yeah. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, at first we were kind of like poking fun, at this lion. But the journey of Dorothy, towards, at the end where she's talking to the wizard, and all of these moments of truth are coming up, and it's really about that all along we've always had the intuition, the courage, the strength, um, uh, and we don't need anybody else to tell us what to think, how to feel. It's all right within, I believe, is what I said. I wish I
Yeah.
could say
Yep.
it the way I said it before, but and Kim, you had said something about the scene. You looked at the scene of
His speech.
Yes.
I always loved that speech that he gave, because it was just, okay, courage. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage.
Yes.
That whole, and he's saying, he says silly things, what makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in apricot? What have they got that I ain't got? And everybody says, courage. You can say that again. So, but of all of that troop, he went along. He had the courage to go along with everybody, to journey with them.
And he dug deep too, if I recall. He really tried so hard,
And he wasn't like the other lions.
Right. And everybody too had the courage to be their authentic selves throughout that journey.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting too, and I hadn't thought about this before. I've read all the Oz books with our daughter. It's funny, but I hadn't thought about this, is that like the essential ingredient in what, Frank Baum saw as being everything you need is the mind, right? The scarecrow, the mind, the heart, the Tin Woodman, and courage.
Right.
Like, that says a lot right there.
It does.
But those are the three, the mind, the heart, and courage. Courage to listen to the higher self.
Now just don't smack me. To reflect just a little bit. There was always a little part of me at the very end when Dorothy was like, "You mean I had this in me all the time? All I had to do was click my hand." I wanted to punch the fairy. I wanted to punch her and say, "Really? You couldn't have told me this before? I went through all of this, and I had it all along." But I mean, I understand the journey is actually more important than the destination. It just was always that, man, I'd love to smack her,
We really need all those monkeys.
Right.
Really?
All those life lessons had to really kick me in the butt. Like, what?
You couldn't have just
Yeah.
told me in the very beginning?
Yeah.
No, apparently not.
So
So
funny.
there's always that. But
So much sweeter though, don't you think? Just sort of reflecting back on
that's
all
more
the moments that you think,
you you have that journey, those memories to bolster you as you go forward.
right,
Right.
and that's part of
Wisdom.
being able to lean into, because courage is a muscle. So it's something that we strengthen as we go along. And I agree with you, like reflect on those moments where you asked for help, where you spoke up to somebody that you and said things that you wouldn't necessarily have before. Um,
And you know, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be too,
mhm.
you know, which is such a testament to how the angels always have your back, you know.
Mhm.
True.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So any final thoughts from either of you? I'm hearing yes, so tag you're in.
Just again, to reiterate, see your worth. See the fact that you are courageous. Be
Hmm.
kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself,
Mhm.
and recognize that it took great courage for you to come here, as it took great courage for everyone else to
Mhm.
be here and experience what they're experiencing. So, give yourself a break
Hmm.
and give somebody else a break too. They're on their path just like you are. We all have our choices of fear or courage. Choose courage.
Hmm.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. To pat yourself on the back, to recognize that if it takes courage for you to get out of bed in the morning, pat yourself on the back. Um, and also too, if it is a muscle, which I agree, I never thought of it that way, to strengthen courage muscle,
Mhm.
um, do the things that help you. I remember saying last week in class, I think I'm going to actually, I have a window in my office and I just have sticky notes all over it. And I look at them all the time. And I will put the word courage up there, because courage can also equate to trust. I trust my angels. It takes courage to trust my angels,
Yeah,
So, not as much as it used to. Now I'm like, it's a piece of
because you've built up that muscle.
because I strengthen that muscle. Exactly. So do what you need to do, and don't judge yourself, for it. Whatever it takes to strengthen that muscle. I would really encourage that.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a great topic. I love it.
yeah, it's a juicy one.
It is. It is.
Yeah. And Reverends Marianne and Jamie will be back live next week to continue the conversation about courage because we're going to be talking about it all month. And I do agree. I think it's something that, we may circle back to kind of as a monthly theme,
Mhm.
in future years, just because I think there is so much that can be shared around it and framing around it. And I do feel called to go back to, point the arrow at yourself because, Kim, I think it was you was saying it's so easy for us to look at others in certain categories or vocations or whatever as courageous. Um, but it's if there's so much courage that shows up in other places and spaces as well that we need to honor within ourselves
Mhm.
and within others too. So,
Yes, I can't help but think about, while in prayer, asking other people's angels to help give them courage,
mhm,
because everybody is going through something.
right.
This dark night of the soul. It takes courage to really, recognize that and embrace that. And, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how it would be a nice practice for anybody feeling inspired and feeling, I think I am, like to just say, wow, how courageous of you and how courageous of both of you to say yes to being here today, and to say yes to this journey and to really, it's saying yes to your own inner sacred minister.
Mhm.
That's really what you're saying yes to. And that takes courage. So, all right. So we're going to close with our 12 tenets, and I'm going to just share that screen and invite any of you joining either live or by recording to either say these along with us, or you can just, I love to just listen and allow the words to go wherever within that you need them to go at this time. And okay, so Vanessa, you're going to start first, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I open my heart with deep gratitude and intend today to master my spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical energies.
I am dedicated to my spiritual practice. I surrender to my soul's purpose through sacred prayer. I own my guidance.
I live in partnership with my angels. I serve with a loving heart. I am compassionate in every moment.
I trust it's all good. I allow immediate forgiveness. I honor my truth.
I listen to the spiritual messages within my physical body. I express myself creatively. I am one with Mother Earth.
And so it is.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you both for joining me in this really rich conversation. It's been such an honor, and thank you to everyone who has joined either live or by recording. I admittedly have not been checking Facebook, but will, as soon as we're done, just check in with folks. And anyway, wishing you all so much love and many blessings.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you.
Such an honor. I love you, Kim, and I love you, Elvia.
Love you guys. Well, bye.
Bye.
Bye.